Hi, this is Josh Kulp for Daf Shevui. We are learning Mem Daled, Daf 44 of Masechet Avodah Zarah. I am currently, while videoing this, sitting in my sister's home in Cherry Hill, New Jersey, sitting out another nor'eastern that you're having out here. So I hope by the time you're watching it, the weather has calmed down and you're all enjoying the beautiful day. I am also finally wearing my Super Bowl champions Eagles t-shirt, which makes me very happy because I'm near Philadelphia and I was born and bred in this area. In any case, to get to our daf, we are learning about several prohibitions that appear on this page. But first I want to talk about the verse that really appears quite frequently throughout the page. It's from Exodus 20, verse 20. It reads, Lo ta'asun iti, Elohei chesed, Elohei zahav, lo ta'asu lachem. And the first three words, lo ta'asun iti, are a little bit unclear. What they seem to read is do not do with me, do not make with me. What is this with me? So rabbinic interpretation tends to see this as an additional prohibition beyond idol worship. Idol worship was prohibited already in the Ten Commandments, and also making the image of God, God's self, was already prohibited in the Ten Commandments. So according to the exegetical norms of the rabbis, this has to be giving another prohibition, something that we don't read about in the Ten Commandments. And the normative interpretation you can see throughout this daf is there's a prohibition of making God's attendance. Now, what does it mean, God's attendance? We can see several different interpretations, but they all seem to be some kind of heavenly body or angel that serves God up in the heavens. It could be the sun, it could be the moon, it could be the stars, it could be various forms of angels, it could be the four-faced type of angel that carries the chariot in Ezekiel. And it's interesting to note, what is both the Bible's take on monotheism and also the rabbis' take on monotheism. I would say, at least let's just stick to the rabbinical interpretation for now, that two things. First of all, people in the time period did generally seem to accord some sort of sanctity to God's helpers. These appear in various forms. Certainly, it was a common belief in angels. The Bible certainly believes in angels. The heavenly bodies are not gods in and of themselves, but they are holy servants of God's, and perhaps some other types of God's helpers. Other places we read about the Word of God being something through which God creates the world. In other words, they did not have this form of radical monotheism that we tend to believe in today, which is really the outgrowth of Maimonides. But not only do people believe that, I want to emphasize that rabbis believe that as well. They just want to curb those instincts. In other words, when they say that people shouldn't draw the images of God's attendance, I don't think that what they're saying is that they shouldn't draw them because they do not believe in their efficacy, but rather the opposite is true. People shouldn't draw them because they have some of the same sanctity that God has. Today, we might say that if we're radically monotheist, that we don't believe that really there is any power to angels. These are just metaphors. But I don't think that's the way that people believed back then. It's probably still the way that many people believe today, that God has attendance. Just to go over another couple issues that appear on this daf, there is a recurring issue throughout this tractate that we've seen before. When is an image only decorative, and when is it there for actual Avodah Zarah purposes? But that relates mostly to things that were found by Jews that belong to non-Jews. So if you find things with certain images on them, can you use them? It also comes up at the end of the daf with the signet ring. Is the image on the signet ring Is it just decorative? It doesn't seem to be Avodah Zarah, but we get this additional concern, even if the Jew isn't worshiping it, but other people might think that the Jew is according it some sort of sanctity. So there's this notion of chashad. One should stay away from idolatrous images, lest people think that somebody is worshiping idols. There's a couple sources that come up here that are really about worshiping idols. They're brought from elsewhere. I want to emphasize again, something we've talked about before, Masechet Avodah Zarah is not really about worshiping Avodah Zarah. It's about interacting with non-Jews and using their material goods that were made for, or maybe not for, idolatrous purposes. But inside this sugya does come up some images where it talks about Jews being prohibited to worship them, and that the rabbis were extremely strict upon. You couldn't even worship lowly figures. You couldn't worship anything. It didn't matter. There was no discussion. Is it idolatrous or not idolatrous? If you're worshiping it, bowing down to it, according a sanctity to the idol, that's prohibited under the rules of Avodah Zarah. But that's generally not what we're talking about. And also what comes up in this daf is the Rabban Gamliel story from Masechet Brachot, which is about Rabban Gamliel having images of the moon to check to see whether the new moon had come, and he would examine the witnesses, a famous story from Brachot. I want to sort of reiterate that no one thinks that Rabban Gamliel was worshiping idols or drawing things for idolatrous purposes. The only question is, what is the legitimization for Rabban Gamliel for doing so? And that's a question that we might ask today. What is the, if we're making certain images or using certain images, we know we're going to do that. We know under certain circumstances you have to do that. But what gives that sort of a theoretical legitimacy? That's the question they're asking about Rabban Gamliel. There's no doubt that they had to find a way in the end to legitimize what Rabban Gamliel did, because after all, Rabban Gamliel was Rabban Gamliel, one of the founders of Rabbinic Judaism. This is a daf that I really, really enjoy. It's got some amazing sugyot, amazing central concepts to Judaism, and I hope you enjoy it as well. And as always, please do ask questions on our Daf Shevui page on Facebook.